Today I'm visiting Hopkins Creek Trail Camp and State Forest Campground. This campground has two different parts to it, and one part is an equestrian campground. The other part is a legitimate State Forest campground that sits closer to Hopkins Creek. This campground sits between Fife Lake and Manton, just to the east of US 131. And if you're coming to this campground, you need to know a couple different things. First thing is the sites here in the equestrian part of the campground are huge. The billboard up here shows that there's actually like 43, 47, something like that campsites, and there are not. There's a separate map here that shows there are 16 campsites located in the equestrian part of the campground, and there are 7 campsites located in the State Forest campground part. One of those campsites are a hike into campsite if you're backpacking and hiking in this area. 27 primitive group sites and 16 individual. Holy cow. $20 a night. So what I believe this sign is trying to indicate is that here within the State Forest campground there are 7 sites. Within the equestrian campground there are 16. But if you are out horseback riding, traveling down the trail, there are numerous other sites available to camp at along your way if you're not just doing an out and back. This campground sits along the Shore to Shore Trail, which is a hiking, backpacking, and equestrian trail that runs from Empire to Oscoda, Michigan. The 420-mile-long trail system definitely has to have some spots to stay along the trail, so that's what leads me to believe the remaining campsites that this poster talks about would be campsites along the trail for backpackers and equestrian use. Now then, walking through the actual equestrian campground part here, the sites are absolutely massive. There is one site over here that has a horse trailer parked along inside it, and it's big enough to fit several other trailers. These sites are huge and plenty big enough for whatever rig you're pulling, whether it's being pulled with a semi and the length of a semi-trailer, or whether it's just a small pop-up camper and a small tent. Whatever you're bringing up here, you can fit in these campsites. But I would say that these are intended for equestrian use. If you're here and it's not very busy, like on the day that I'm here, you could probably get away with renting one of these sites for a night or two, whether you have horses or not. However, on a busy weekend or during a riding event, you're going to definitely want to go down the road to the State Forest campground that's just a little bit off the path here. I'm hiking what seems to be a small unpaved road, or maybe even considered a 2-track that goes through the campground, and it has campsites to the left and to the right of it, and it goes down here quite a ways past the actual campground. I hiked it for quite a ways beyond the last campsite that I seen, and I didn't see anything else farther up ahead. That doesn't mean that there aren't larger group sites down the road farther. If anyone has any more information about down the road farther, please leave a comment in here, because I'd like to know. There was a DNR officer that took this road and drove down past the campground, so I'd imagine there is something down there, but from what I could see, it just pops out to another paved road up ahead. Because it's huge. Now, the water source for the equestrian part of the campground here is going to be via an electric generator. There is no hand pump that I could find to actually pump the water, and there's no running water in this campground. There is a spot to hook up a generator and actually get large amounts of water, because you're going to most likely be here watering horses. Most equestrian campgrounds have this set up. I've seen some in the past where the actual pump is ran through solar panels. This is not the case here. You have to bring your generator in order to pump the water. I'm gonna assume that is a marker for the equestrian trail. Following that road for quite a ways outside of the campground, it didn't appear there was anything worth continuing on for, and it did look like I said it popped out to another road up ahead. Back in the campground here, I'm going to go a little slower through some of these campsites. We are looking at great big open campsites. Most of them have pull-through capabilities. That way you're not trying to back up a huge rig around all these little trees. You can see we have the nice fire pits here in this campground that have the concrete barrier, so you're not burning yourself or risking fire in this area, because it seems like it's incredibly dry up here, even though I know we've recently had rain just before I got to this campground. The way the tree canopy sits up so high and provides so much shade is really enjoyable here in this campground. And I also really like the low growth ferns that are growing all over. It gives the impression that you can look out through the forest for quite a ways here, and you really can. And what's nice is these campsites down this part of the road here are so well spaced out that even though it's big open canopy like that, you don't really see your neighbor, and it'd be really hard to probably hear them because they're spaced out so well here. A couple of outhouses sit here side by side in the equestrian campground, and these are the only two outhouses for the equestrian part of the campground, and there's another one down farther here at the state forest campground. Here I am walking past the horse trailer that's parked here, and I don't see any people around, but there's a little dog running around out here. It's like a really small dog. Had me a little bit concerned that nobody was around, but I'm gonna guess that it's either chained up, leashed up, or it's just really well behaved because it didn't follow me. Here is the generator powered water source, and don't know why the camera's spinning in circles, but look at there's a hand pump for water. It's on the very back side of the campground here. I couldn't see it when I first walked in, but you have two sources of water now. You can pump a large amount of water for your horse trough, and you can hand pump yourself some drinking water. Cadillac 19. There's some horseback riders right now. Seems awesome. It seemed like quite a long hike to get down here to the state forest campground portion of Hopkins Creek here. It was a pleasant hike, cut you right through the woods here. The drive would definitely seem shorter, but eventually you do really pop out to a state forest campground. Hopkins Creek Rustic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's it. $20 a night. We've got one outhouse with a little solar panel on top, so I'm going to imagine there's a light inside. We have a hiking trail. Maybe, no, maybe not. Hike back to site number 1. Site number 1 is the walk-in site for the hikers and backpackers. Not that you can't use any site when you're here hiking and backpacking, but this is intended to get you away from other campers and more secluded. Right underneath some nice big pines. Couple white pine, couple red pine. Nice. Oh, look how cute this is. They had to cut this pine tree down, but little seedlings are growing up in here. Look at that. 3 of them. 4. There's another one right there. Cute. If you're thinking, what the heck, why would you pull those baby pine trees out of that pine tree stump? I actually did not. There are little tiny weeds also growing up in that stump that were overcrowding the little pine trees. We're gonna cut through site 2 since it's empty. It looks like between 2 and 3 is the water pump. I got the feeling right away that this is a pretty quiet, not super heavily used state forest campground with only 7 sites, 1 hand pump, and a really nice layout. It seems like a pretty relaxing spot to come. The campground here is laid out on somewhat of a loop. You can see the road comes up and off to the left here, it loops right back around and heads back to the equestrian part of the campground. As I loop around the campground here, you can see 3 of the 7 spots are occupied in this part of the State Forest Campground, and they all back up to Hopkins Creek. Hopkins Creek here is a pretty popular destination for trout anglers as a variety of trout travel through the creek. Definitely a good quiet spot if you want to come up here and try your hand at some fly fishing. Otherwise, it's just a good spot to come and relax. I definitely like the other sites better than 6 and 7 here because they seem to have more shade, and they definitely back up towards the creek where these sites don't back up to anything except forest. Now, I will mention that I'm in an area where I've heard there's a pretty heavy bear presence. I don't know if there's a lot of black bear up in this specific campground area, but where I've stayed at up here in the past, there's definitely been signs warning people of black bear. And I don't see any signs on either of these billboards here at the registration stations, but that doesn't mean black bear don't exist. So make sure you pack up your food pretty good if you're coming to stay up here. Don't leave stuff laying around that's going to provoke bear to want to come up to your campsite and cause any issues. Typically, here in Michigan, we don't have a lot of black bear issues. Worst case scenario, they're going to come in, rob your food, and get the heck out. No different than a big raccoon. Now I'm following the road through the path out of the equestrian part of the campground here. As I head back into the equestrian campground, the road curves off to the right, and it'll eventually take me back to the registration station where it's still just $20 a night to stay at either one of these campgrounds, and then back to my vehicle where there's a large mowed area that looks like maybe it's a staging area for equestrian use. There's no designated camping in the large mowed area, but it does look like plenty of people have parked there and probably staged trailers to get them out of the way of their campsite. Maps of equestrian trails. So this up here says 43 sites. This shows 16 total, plus the ones that are down for the primitive, so I don't know. There are not 40 plus sites though. Maybe there's several that are backcountry for the equestrian use. Whew, toasty. It is hot and dry up here.